welcome to the podcast of the Composition and Music Theory Department of the Karol Szymanowski Music Academy in Katowice.
Welcome, Idin, my friend, to Szymanowski Radio. I think we start with you introducing yourself. Who you are, what do you do? But you are a composer, that is the secret I can tell already. You are from Iran, but there is a lot more to say about your background, about your education, about your path, about your fascinations. So,
okay,
please tell us something about you. Idin, Samimi, Mofakham.
Thank you so much. Well, you know, you already said my name is Idin, and I'm originally from Iran. I'm a composer, and sometimes I consider myself as an experimental performer as well. But my main job is to compose. Just a little bit about my background is that I born and grew up in Tehran. And when I was when I was a teenager, we moved outside of Tehran, and then it was really hard for my parents to send me to the music school because there were only one music school exist in the center of Tehran, and it would take us like 2 hours of drive daily to go to the school, or you know. So sure. I ended up in the mathematics and physics oriented school and high school, and I earned a high school diploma on mathematics and computer coding. But back then we were code with MS-DOS or late 90s, what I'm talking about. As a hobby, I started to play guitar at the age of 17 or 18. I consider myself a late bloomer because, I started to learn music very late as well. I was very lucky because I wanted to become a rock star.
You failed.
What?
You failed.
I failed, yes.
But you have long hair.
Yeah, I have a very long hair, but I failed as a rock star. But I had a very good teacher because I borrowed a classical guitar from my uncle, and I just went to the first private music institute at the age of 17 or 18. And I just knew the teacher there, the guitar teacher. And I told him that I want to become a rock star. And he said, okay, no problem. Just sit and play scales, arpeggios, and this kind of stuff. And then he slowly gave me, more classical music like Fernando Sor and Tárrega and then Bach. And, he somehow cheated me towards the classical music. And when I was around 20 years, I think, again, very late, I enrolled to the Tehran Conservatoire in the bachelor program for classical guitar. But I didn't finish that because of several reasons. One of them was that I got tired of performing the same Western repertoire all the time. Because again, I think one of the problems with the classical guitar, or at least 20 years ago in Iran, was that there is a very limited repertoire for that. And then I decided now I play a lot of this repertoire. I play some the routine stuff. So I decided to to experience more things. And so we formed a experimental music band with my sister and two of my friends. And we were just, we had no idea what we were doing. But what we did was we tried to rearrange some of this music that we knew to perform with this weird band. It was 3 classical guitars and 1 singer. But slowly we find our own ways. One of my friends, he moved from classical guitar to learn double bass, and then electric bass. The other moved to cello because he thought that it's nice to learn that. So during experimenting and finding new things, we just somehow all of us find our career and the next steps in our lives. Slowly, again with this band, it's being called migraine because of the head migraine. We slowly, instead of playing transcribed Piazzolla or Bach for 3 guitars or double bass and guitar and singer and so on, we slowly arranged more interesting music like Philip Glass and Steve Reich and this kind of music, and then we disbanded because my sister moved to Germany to continue her studies as a professional opera vocal singer. And so we became a trio of boys, me as a guitar, a cello, and a double bass, and and then we invited another friend of ours with the electric guitar. And we reshaped migraine into more experimental things. And I'm saying that in a lot of interviews and everything, that we were playing, we were record ourselves on the cassette tapes, and then we play on top of that, or stretching the cassette tapes and playing on top of that. And we just wanted to see, we experienced new things. We didn't know that such a thing exists in Europe for 70 years, and it's called music concrete or whatever it's called, or noise music. It was, very early 20s, no information in Iran, no free internet that you can have access to YouTube or all these things, gems that exist out there now. Younger generation have that.
So basically you say that this was like a historical necessity, because when it appeared in Europe and you didn't know about it, but you discovered it again. So it had to happen. It was it was meant to be.
Yeah, somehow. Yeah. I guess so. And then again we disbanded because unfortunately one of us passed away, and then 3 of us, the existing band members, we decided that it's time to move on. I moved to Armenia in 2000. It was 2004, 2005 already. I moved to Armenia to study music theory and composition because I wanted to. During these experiments in the basement with crazy electronic stuff, I realized that I really want to become a composer and less be out there as a performer. So the closest place and easiest place to go and study music composition for me, who didn't finish the music school, because in Iran, if you want to enroll to the music university, you have to, or at least 20 years ago, the rule was like that you had to finish music high school with the, music college and so on. As I didn't went there because
is it comparable to the Polish system, like that, where we have this music schools that a lot of people go to and before they study actually at the music academy? Is it comparable? Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that in Iran it's the same system. Okay.
Yeah, it was like that. Now it's a little bit changed because of the higher education is not free anymore. You have to pay to go to the music academy or so on, and rules are changed. But 20 years ago or 18 years ago, you had to be finished music high school in order to go to the music school. I had private classes. I had 3 years of bachelor in a private conservatoire of a classical.
So this was private. It was not university. It was a private conservatoire.
Yeah, okay. it was a private institute that if you finish the program, 4 years program, you were entitled as a bachelor. But it was a little bit different. Well, it's a very long story with the music education in Iran. I wrote an article. It's going to publish very soon in Glisando in March.
Okay.
I guess. So yeah, it's like 40.
So we can link that. Then we can connect those two things in the publishing of the interview with you and the article in Glisando.
Yeah,
cool.
It would be fun, I guess. So anyway, I had to go abroad to study music composition, and Armenia was the easiest one to go because I just had to buy a bus ticket, and in 20 hours later, I'm in Armenia, in Yerevan. I just go to the music conservatoire, say hello, I just want to come here, go to the test, make the test, solfeggio, harmony, counterpoint, all these things, and show us some of your scores. I show something, and then, I was a student. I had a very good teacher, Ashad Zohrabian, who passed away like 10 days ago. He was a fantastic man. I've been at his class for both my bachelor and master's. And actually, it was him that somehow pushed me towards learning traditional music of Iran. Because when I went to Armenia, I was very fascinated with serialism. Every young composer is at least back then. I don't know what is the top kind of music right now for the younger generation, but back then we were fascinated with serialism, with total serialism, Boulez, Stockhausen, all these things. And I just went to his class, and I just showed my very naive sketches of music, and he said, "Okay, I will accept you, but if you want to become a next Boulez, just go out. I don't want you. Go and learn Iranian music, and then we can talk about things." So it was him that somehow showed me the way to look at the Iranian classical music, or traditional music, or folk music as a source of inspiration for writing music. For a while, I was trying to, make a serialization of these microtonal melodies of Iran, and then I failed. And then, you as a student, you experience different things.
You try out different things and see if they work or if they don't.
Yeah, most of the time you think it worked, but some years later you realize that it wasn't that much good, or I don't know. In 2012, I came back to Iran from Armenia, and I've started, I started to teach there for a while, and then in 2019, I came to Norway to continue my studies as a PhD fellow at the Oslo Music Academy. But what happened between 2012 to 2019 was, again, another person I met that had a huge impact on my career, except Martina Koseska, my wife, that I met her in 2013. And it's true that being in my life, it was a really huge change. But in 2015, I met Ukrainian, originally from Ukraine, Canadian, Berlin-based composer Mark Sabat, and he introduced me the world of just intonation, where there is, there is a lot of mathematics involved. There's a lot of acoustic involved. And because of my background in the
yeah, so that this relates to your school times, to your high school times, the interest in maths and physics.
Exactly. So somehow this weird puzzle of my life is, you see this part of puzzles that finally fit. I forced to go to a mathematics-oriented school, but at the end, it really helped me because somehow it gives me the ability, or the the form of brain or whatever it's called in science, I don't know, to be able to relate with numbers. And
you have the tools, you have the intellectual tools to understand and operate with numbers. Yes.
Exactly.
More than I do, obviously. And most other composers.
yeah, and it's really fun for me because now I just, spend a lot of time with numbers. I can show you just a little sketch for a new piece that I just made.
And it's only numbers. It's math.
It's only numbers.
Are you a mathematician or a composer, Idin?
Yes. I don't know. I don't know which one. but again, sorry. From Mark, I learned, this new path to look at the music. And then I was trying to understand that how I can speak with the mathematics of music with my own artistic language, and by accident, somehow I was lucky, I find about the music theory that been written in Iran between 9th to 13th century, which is called in the West the Golden Age of Islam, because between 7th to 15th century, whole Middle East was somehow like a, explosion of science in every, different directions of science, and music, of course, considered like like ancient Greek, considered as a subgroup of mathematics and science. So there is huge amount of writings about music during this period in Iran, in Arabia, in Turkey, and in different languages, in Arabic, Turkish, and Farsi. So I was introduced, I learned about these fantastic things that exist there. And usually only either historical musicologues going to read them or talk about them, or philosophy, those who are involved with philosophy, they are reading these books, because usually these books written by polymaths that are mainly philosophers like Farabi, or which in Europe is known as Al-Farabi, or Ibn Sina, which in Europe known as Avicenna, the father of modern,
yes.
what it's called. I forgot. Medicine. Yeah. So all of these people wrote fantastic books about music and music.
I actually find this fascinating, that in this point in history, like in global history, like the top region of intellectual development was the Near and Middle East. Yes. Like it's fascinating. It changed obviously, but it was for quite a long time. Culture and art and everything and science thrived in this region, and I think but Europe benefited from that later through this strange connection via the invasion, the Arabian or occupation of the Iberian Peninsula. So some of this theory, also of Greek theories that survived in the let's call it the Muslim world, it came back to Europe through Spain. It's like a circle. It's very fascinating.
Exactly. It's really interesting when you look at it as a meta, long shot. It's really interesting that it came from the Greece, came to the Middle East and Near East, and it survived, it translated, and then translated back to the European languages, and years later, centuries later. It's really interesting. So I started to study these books, and I try to understand what is going on in there. And it's really hard because they are either written in Arabic, which I know how to read Arabic because we use the same alphabet in Farsi, but these are two different languages. Even
the topic of languages is something I wanted to address even earlier. You are from Iran, and your mother tongue is Iranian, or Farsi, of course. Farsi, yes. It's not such thing like Iranian. Farsi. So, like in school, were you obligated to learn Arabic, because like Iran is a theocracy, and like I imagine that there is some kind of indoctrination of the kids of Islam. Does this happen, or can you tell me about that?
Huge amount of that. Huge amount of that. We had obligatory Arabic for, I think, 6 years or 7 years in school. And we had, huge amount of, religious studies in school.
But
it's the first year.
Because there are a lot of stories about the teaching of Russian in the old Soviet satellite state like Poland.
Yes.
And lots of elder people say they had to study Russian, but they refused. They didn't want to. Is it the same in Iran, that if you are forced to learn Arabic, that you have this inner opposition? I don't want to. If it opens in a new world, obviously, but because it's so connected with here it was connected with political ideology. There it is with religious ideology, like with religion. Do you have this inner opposition towards this, or did you have that?
I think we all had it somehow. Yeah. And there's also, it's really,
because you say you said you can read it, but you had it like 6 years in school, which is a long time, actually.
Yeah, so, because we use the same alphabet. It's like that. It's like
yeah, of course. But you don't understand it, or is it hard, or?
Again, it's really complicated.
Okay, so explain, please.
Yeah. Iran were occupied by Arabs in 7th century. Exact year is 651. So it was an Islamic invasion to ancient Persia, where people were talking Middle Persian, which is not the language that we talk right now. It was different writing system, different everything. And then between the 7th century, for a very long time, because the rulers of the country, of the whole, Iran, were the Arab leaders. And they banned people to talk, write, and learn Farsi. Not Farsi, Middle Persian.
Middle Persian. Is Middle Persian like the grandfather of Farsi?
Somehow, yes. Okay. Yes. And so and all the scientific writings, or whatever writings that in the 7th century, it's not that everybody knows how to read and write. Some degree of society knows. The farmers, they don't know how to write or read. It's 7th century. It's not now. So they had to change the official language of the writings into Arabic. So they had to learn the Arabic alphabet. And during several centuries, it's changed. So nobody remembers the Pahlavi or old Middle Persian writing system anymore. Everybody writes as with Arabic alphabet, what we are still using today. But the language came from Eastern Iran, because there was some revolutions in the 9th century or 9th, 10th century in very far eastern part of Iran, which is now we can call those part is now Tajikistan, Afghanistan, that far. There were revolutions, and there were Farsi-speaking kings came back. And they started to use the language that we talk today as a new form of old Persian. Mm-hmm. But they use Arabic alphabet, so nobody remembers the old one, but everybody knows the new one. And and several centuries later, now it's the end of 20th century. Idin is happily going to the school. It's a Islamic revolution happened in 1979 and so on, and we are forced to learn Arabic because of the as you said the religion. So, yeah, because of the force of religion, force of regime. It's a theological regime. We all now know about this. These days is on the news all the time.
Yeah, we will speak about that in the end, I think.
Yeah. So we were forced to learn Arabic for 6 or 7 years. I don't remember exactly. But it was exactly the same as your parents hated Russian because of all these political things. We also didn't like that. Also, the Arabic that they were teaching us in the school is extremely useless because they teach us the Arabic that used to write Quran 14th centuries ago. It's like that.
Yeah, most people aren't aware that Arab is a very, very wide group of dialects that people from different regions nowadays have difficulties to understand each other. If they're from Egypt or Libya or Syria, it's their very different dialects. And there is this basis of this language, which is the Arab of the Quran, but it's like medieval. So obviously it isn't spoken anymore. It's a bit like Latin, and it's not maybe that far away, but it's like a bit like Latin and Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. I think for people who don't know about that to compare it, so it's like Latin a bit. Like the parts of the Bible are in Latin, so parts the Quran is in this not anymore quite understandable and useful Arab of medieval times.
Yeah, exactly. You said you said it in a very beautiful way. I had to blah for 20 more minutes to wrap it up. Anyway, we didn't learn Arabic at all. I know some words that I remember some phrases, but when I had friends in different places that I live. I had friends from Iraq, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Egypt, and every time that I said, I studied 6 years of Arabic, let's try something, and I just, I can't because we didn't learn it really, and we also learned, some historical kind of language. Coming back to the music theory and my life, I had to read all these books in order to understand what's going on with the music theory back then and the tuning system and so on. So I dedicated my Ph.D. time on reading, translating all the ratios, mathematically written tuning systems and scales by different authors in the medieval time. Into the Western new tuning system as a source of inspiration for the other composers who are interested into the non-Western tuning systems and modal systems. Also, I use these intervals, scales, and tetrachords in my own music. So I hope that I did something interesting for the future, for the future of music, or at least, one more person who is interested into wild stuff, so he can learn or she can learn.
We were speaking about the impact that Iranian classical music had on you. What is interesting in this fascination, I think, is that, as far as I understood, it is something that was born abroad, not while you were not during your formative years in Iran as a teenager and a young student, but later you discovered it after spending several years in Armenia. also through the professor you mentioned. Maybe you could repeat his name so we can link him as well in the comment section.
Yes, yes. His name was Ashot Zohrabian. I will write it
Ashot
in the
Zohrabian.
chat as well.
So my question is, how present is Iranian classical music in the everyday life of Iranians? Do you listen to this music? Do you perform this music? Because you said your music career started on the guitar. So the first music we spoke about was Tárrega and Sor, which are Catalan composers from Europe, from the classical period. Well, how present is the music of the classical Iranian music nowadays for young Iranians interested in music?
I think now it's even better for the younger generation, especially younger generation who studies music and they like to study composition. They had more knowledge and more interest into Iranian classical music and folk music, because we have, if we want to categorize the music that happens in Iran everyday life, we have to categorize, as a academic, putting everything in the lists and subgroups and stuff.
Yes, to put in the drawers and sort.
Yeah, exactly.
Categorize.
Yeah, we have to categorize music that exists in Iran into three categories. One is the Western music, classical music, that it came to Iran in the late 19th century by French teachers, composers who came to Iran to study military orchestra, and then they started music school and so on. So it's going on for itself. We usually start learning music by learning Western repertoire. We use all these books that you use. Probably most of these books are usual, and also the composers and so on. But there are two other kind of music that exist. One is the Iranian classical music, that it's also known as Radif music, which is like raga in Indian music or maqam music in Arabic music. It's a national music of Iran. Since also one footnote, that since Iran is a big country and it's a multi-ethnical country, each region has its own kind of traditional music. So we have inside Iran, under this big umbrella of classical music, which is called Radif. We also have the classical Kurdish music, classical Khorasan music, classical Baluch music. Each of them had their own classical music that there is a huge repertoire that they have to learn from the old masters to the young students. Also, there exists the folk music, that its job is the wedding songs, lament songs, sailors songs, workers songs. I don't know
how connected are those music, like the traditional folk music and the Iranian, what you call Iranian classical music. Maybe a footnote or a big footnote or another point. What astonished to me personally that this was this term which I encountered first when studying Indian music, that it's called, that they call their music Indian classical music, comparing it in a way that's with Western classical music. So what we in Europe and probably America call classical music actually is our classical music, but there are very elaborate musical cultures. It's not folk music like we have folk music in Europe and other parts of the world, obviously, but it's music that you study, that has theories, And the Iranian, as far as I know, the world of the Iranian music, it's back to the deep Middle Ages. We mentioned already Farabi and some other philosophers that wrote also books or papers about music theory. So this is it's also it's rooted in science. It's not only not only a folk tradition, but it's I think it is more oral. It's more based on improvisation. Maybe you speak about it better than I, of course. I just want to say what maybe some people in Europe know or don't know. And so for me it was a big surprise, this in encountering how sophisticated musical traditions are in India, in Iran, in the Arab world, how complicated the music can be on other levels than in Europe, but very complicated on the same complication level as counterpoint or 19th century harmony from, I don't know, Bruckner or Mahler.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, there are there are several different traditions in the world. And when we look, I think it's nowadays, all of us started to look at the world some other ways, with different angles. But up until 1990s or early 2000, it wasn't like, it was like, Europe, everything, and the rest of the world doing their stuff, folk stuff. And even today, we hear a lot that, Middle Eastern music or Eastern music, which nation in Middle Eastern or East? East is, from, huge amount of countries. It's exactly the same thing, as you said, that we have to label different traditions correctly. When we say classical music, we just cut the Western, or more correct, European classical music, because not the whole, all West is West.
Yes.
And mainly when we're talking about the classical, Western classical music, we're talking about the European music, not the American one, because the time of Bach and all these counterpoints and other things. So we are talking about European classical music. It's the same with the Iranian. I mainly studied deeply medieval Iranian music, more specifically between 9th to 15th century, because of several different reasons. But what I learned is that during 9th to 15th century, there is huge amount of written material about every aspect of music. About we have like collections. There's one book called Al-Aghani, means the melodies, which it has written more than 20,000 songs. That it's a
20,000
Western. Yeah, 20,000, 20,000 songs that it happened that people in the Middle East were singing in Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, all those parts of the country. And in this Al-Aghani is written in 9th century. So, of course, with different kind of notation system, we had this alphabet system that I have the tattoo on my arm. Instead of having 5 staffs.
This is music notation.
This is the scale. This is the Oshar scale, which is very similar to the Dorian scale of Western music, almost the same intervals. So they were writing the scales with the circle, and showing the intervals between the pitches in the circle. We can do it one other time when we just sit and I will draw all these things for you. Or they were writing with the alphabets that, for example, A stands for like the German notation, A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. But
AHC in German is hard.
they had their own back then. They had their own way of writing, notating the songs. And then there are a huge amount of books about the tuning systems, scales, which is most interesting for me. And then there are books about instrument making, how to, an acoustic of the instruments. And there are huge amount of music about writings about the music therapy, the effect of music on the psychological or, of the body and so on. And then about this, how to teach music or, study music. But then the Mongol invasion happened in 15th century. And almost the whole, this huge center of science that it was expanded from Uzbekistan or Tajikistan until, Lebanon, is all destroyed. Nothing stayed. And after that, because of then, different political changes, religious changes, especially in Iran, there is no written material about music anymore for several centuries. From 15th to 17th, 18th century, there are very few little, not books as books, but, little, some stuff, papers that, but more about.
There's not much material anymore.
There's not much material. There are more about the philosophical aspects of music or poetry or, these kind of things. So I really do believe it if those invasions wouldn't happen, probably the music education or, learning or teaching music would be different today in the whole part of,
So you basically say that you lost a part of the tradition, or it was broken in a way. Do I understand that correct?
Broken and lost, both.
Both. Okay.
Both. And then for several centuries, it was the oral tradition of
an oral tradition. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And until late 90s, that the Western, French teachers came to Iran to teach Western music, and they started to notate Iranian classical music with the, with a European system, 5 staffs and so on. Where were we that we ended up here? I'm lost.
we speaking. My basic question was how present. I don't know if I use the correct word. If Iranian classical music is nowadays a thing for people in Iran that they go to concerts, that they listen to, that they study, and obviously it's my question is a bit connected. Maybe my original interest in all this is from a meeting I had with a Syrian composer, Zaijabi. He's based in Krakow and living for a long time in Poland. And he was speaking about and I was speaking about he was speaking about quarter tones, and he was speaking about how stupid the Western use of quarter tones is, dividing the equal temperament octave of semitones, which is already an approximation, even more, like only by again in half, and that it has it's not really connected to any musical tradition, or there is no musical reason for this. And he was speaking about obviously he's from Syria, so he was speaking about Arab scales, but they are connected. I think there's a connection between the Indian music, the Iranian music, and the Arab music. The Iranian music is a bit like in the middle. It influences on Indian music and vice versa, and of course the same with it's geographic. It's in the middle, so it has connections to both. But they are interconnected, I think, in many ways. Like for example, like this system that they don't really have scales, but raga it's not a scale. It's between scale and melody. The same as Dastgah, which is it's not the same as raga, but it's connected, but it's different. And Mofakham is the same. It's not really a scale. It's a basis. It's a melodic material based on scales and melodic formula. And I think it's a great field for studying. But what all those music connects is that the melodic material they include microtones, not quartertones. And he was speaking about the use of microtones in Arabic, traditional Arabic music. So my question to you is, how present is this like in everyday musical practice for you? And how strange, or maybe it's not strange at all. The Western music sound, which is based on a totally different tuning system, which does it sound out of tune for you, or did it sound for a time, or did you adapt? Did you adapt to the? Yeah, sometimes the words fail me in a foreign language. Did you adapt to or do you adapt? Can you listen to the traditional Iranian music and later switch to I don't know, hearing Bach or Chopin, or how difficult is there a difficulty for you? How is it from a performative point of view? Like the performance of microintervals, maybe it's for you it's natural. For us it's not so natural because we don't hear that from our childhood. Did you? So this is maybe the bunch of questions I'd like you to
huge question, actually.
Yeah.
And I can talk like 2 more hours about that. And I love to, because it's really an interesting topic. Well, first of all, about the availability, is that the word, of the Iranian classical music or folk music around, surrounding us in Iran it's always there. It's in the pop music, it's in the hip hop music, it's in the religious music, because in Iran we have three days of like in Turkey and many other Muslim countries, we have the 3 days, 3 times per day call for prayers, called azan, and the person who sing that is called muazzin, and Szymanowski has a great piece about the crazy muazzin and the melodies. So we have this, and there they sing in the depends on the country, and in Iran they sing within Iranian modal system. Again, it's really interesting from place to place, because for example in Tehran they use the Dastgah modal structure to sing the azan, or in the western part they use the Kurdish modal structures, or in the northern Iran they use Azeri modal structure, and they're different, and it's so beautiful. So you're 3 times per day you have this Radif.
So you hear it every day 3 times.
Yeah, 3 times per day. Once in the early, by sunset, midday, and the down. They call it in the streets, and there are mosques at every corner in Iran, and they're not singing anymore. They just play a tape. but anyway,
that's sad. That's sad.
Yeah, it's so sad, but yeah. So you're hearing this, at least 3 times a day, and and the pop music, all the pop singers, they're using this melismatics, melismas, and even the
ornamentations.
Yeah, ornamentations, melismas, and the modes of Iranian music on top of European, harmony, A major to F major and so on. It's really funny mishmash sometimes. so you have it all the time. About myself, I was so lucky to grow up in an environment because of my parents. We listened to a lot of Iranian classical music and Iranian folk music because from different regions of Iran. We call them regional music because from the different regions. So all the time we had this, very pure classical or regional folk music at home on tapes. From the other hand, I grew up with my own very weird taste of listening to the extreme metal. So, I grew up listening to stuff like the easiest stuff for me was like Sepultura, and the heavier stuff like Norwegian Black Metal, Mayhem, or Borzum, or this kind of, and in all of them, there are also, weird tunings. They are not correct. And then I remember when I went to the classical guitar, again, classical guitar is also out of tune instrument because of, it's a weird instrument, although I really love it. It was harder for me to adapt to listen to that because I didn't listen to many classical music before performing them.
So you had this confrontation. You were based in the traditional tuning system, let's call it like that, and the confrontation with equal temperament was something new that you had to confront.
Yes,
and conquest,
and unlearn what was imprinted in my vocal cords and my inner ear. And I remember that I had problem in the solfeggio classes to sing flats, and flats and sharps because our flats are a little bit away from the Western flat. Because of the historical tuning system and so on. And again, I also had problem with when I came back to Iran in 2012, I started to teach harmony, Western classical harmony, and ear training. And because of the educational system, I ended up, because I studied Western classical music, I ended up in the Department of Western Classical Music. So hence I teach those kind of things. And I remember almost all of my students had problem with solfeggio and ear training. We can recognize the intervals very well, but we cannot sing them as you can sing, in tune. Because our flats are less flat, or sharps are, more sharp. And this is what we learned and imprinted into our physics because of the music that we listen to all the time. Unfortunately, these a little bit changed now because somehow this equal temperament became dominant, and even it's really weird and sad. Even those who play the Iranian traditional instruments like tar or setar or whatever instrument it is, they tune their instrument with the piano. So this is the awful thing that happened. That they try to make it or with the applications that it's designed for the Western instruments. So slowly it's changing, and again another thing is that because the government, everything wants to be updated now. They are not using the same tape of azan that when I was kid they used to play it from the mosques. Now they play the new recordings with the new younger generation singing this call for the prayer, and they try to sing in equal temperament. So
what? Really? They try to sing?
It's hurting your ear.
That's so strange. You'd expect an extreme conservative theocracy, like in Iran, that they stick to those conservative traditions, maybe that they don't change them. They implement like Western things. It's absurd in a way.
Yeah, okay. If they want to stick to the really, hardcore beliefs, the music should be banned at all. No music.
Yeah, I know. Islam is against music.
Not good friends. So anyway, all of us are, we have this constant input of the different kind of Iranian tuning system into our ears in Iran. And it's really funny because we have this acoustic piano in Iran, and when Martina moved to Iran, she said that this piano, it didn't tune for more than 10 years or 15 years.
Wait a minute, because I know it, but our listeners don't. Your wife Martina Kosecka, she's also a composer. You married in 2016, and later you lived for 1, 2, 3 years in Iran.
For 4 years.
For 4 years.
3.5 years. 3.5 years.
3.5 years you both lived in Iran. And so Martina.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Martina, when we moved to Iran, she played with this acoustic piano that we had in home in Tehran, and she said, it's awfully out of tune. I said, no, I'm okay with this. It's okay. And then we called a very good tuner. He came, and he comes to our place every 6 months or every 4 months to really fix this piano. And at the end, it never did. It never fixed because it was out of tune for 4 decades or more than that. But it was okay for me. And then when I come here to Norway and I play on the pianos here, that they're really, really well tuned with the equal temperament, I don't like it. It somehow hurt my ears. It tastes like.
So your perception of music is different because of the culture you grew up, or
it is different, of course, and I really do believe it's different, for every different culture. Even within Europe, I think it's not that I don't know.
We have different musical cultures, but the tuning system is for now 300 years the same, and also like another aspect which interests me in this Middle East, like this from India until the Arab world, is a totally different kind of concept practice. Like a piece of music or a composition is not the same as in Western classical music. Western classical music, a composition is a very, very fixed kind of thing. There's nothing you can change. Of course, there are compositions like in Dastgah, there's aleatorism. People try to implement those things, but from like the standard practice that the composition is, it's 100% clear what it should be, and everything is decided by the composer, and the performer is only like. His role is quite diminished because he's only realizing instructions. It's like maybe it's like building IKEA furniture in a way.
Exactly.
In a way, I don't want to diminish the role. It's still very important, and you can play Mozart very differently every day. But it's not. It's very far away from the concert practice or piece practice in India, Iran, and Arabia. That's the thing I'd like to ask as well. As far as I understand it, like traditional music form in Iranian music, it's like the 5 pieces, or could you call it a piece? It's like a prelude, and the fugue is the main piece, Avas, which is concentrated, which includes a lot of improvisatory moments. And then it's the next movement is called Tasnif, and the last is like a ballad, and the last movement is a dance. But this improvisatory, or this freedom of the musician, is something you address yourself in the music you write in a way? Is it a topic for you, or maybe other Iranian composers as well, in general? Or
not for me, because I Well, I have very weird taste in music. I said it for many times now. For several years, I completely left any melodies in my music, and I just build in chords and leave the chords for themselves to present themselves. And the beat and all the the psychoacoustical things that happens within these chords, these microtonal chords, is my music. They are all calculated, but this is my this is my own approach, and I don't want to bore with you saying being boring with talking about that. But about the Iranian classical music or traditional music that you said, it's very correct. It's a it's a meta structure of what's happening within during the time, but the material in between is always changing. It's all based on improvisation. In the Iranian classical music, or as you call it, Dastgah, we have 12 Dastgah, which they are equal to 12 scales, or I prefer to say gamut, because they are not scales like major or minor scale that you go up and down, because it's different. And the gamuts there in Iranian music are usually consist of 4 or 5 3 tetrachords built on top of each other, with different tuning systems, with different microtonal intervals in between them. And so we have like 12 of these gamuts. And for learning classical music, you have to go to a master. Now the Radif, there are huge amount of Dastgah books that you can buy and perform it by yourself. But for learning that, you have to go to the master, and he teach, or she, usually he, in the recent years, more and more she's masters. They teach you the small melodic patterns in these scales, in these frameworks. And if you want to, I usually for my students here, or whenever I have a lecture about Iranian classical music, I make this example of this is a whole universe with 12 different worlds, each one Dastgah, and in each Dastgah there are millions of little people living. So you have to know all of these people's, their characters, their behaviors, and so on. And after like 10 years, 15 years, I don't know, it depends on how much do you practice, how much your master teach you, fast or slow, or he accepts you or she accepts, give you the allows you to become a performer, because for a very long time you have to be a student and just learn. Then you can make the improvise. But the improvise is, what is interesting is you always have to use these small melodic patterns that you've learned. All of these melodic patterns called gushe. And each Dastgah consists of more than 200 gushe, and there are 12 of them. So, imagine how many of these melodic patterns you have to learn. Some of them have the rhythmic patterns in them. Some of them are less rhythmic, or some of them are totally free. It's just only the interval.
I think we get an impression how sophisticated the system is. There are multiple layers.
Yeah,
of this melodic. I'd call it like a melodic framework that you like. It's a skeleton, but you have to. It's only the basis. It's only the basic structure, and the performer needs to know everything about it and fill it out.
Yeah, exactly. And this is how you learn that. And again, leave it. It's too much details. Let's move on. Yeah, that is correct. You have to learn all these melodies and then work with them and improvise with them. You are allowed to repeat them in the order you've learned, but then you become like a CD player of one of the interpretations of Dastgah. The good musicians are those who are learn all the things by heart and then unlearn and then, creating their own world based on the information that they've learned.
Yes. So, but on your own music, it's not different. Your interest is mainly, I understand, in the tuning systems and but also is it also in the does it difference now? Because you spoke for many years, you were interested more in building chords. Is it now also source for melody, or is it something you're interested in as a composer?
Kind of. Well, I've been always writing microtonal music, but then, in different phases of my life, I had different approaches. The earliest one was to use the quarter tones, writing for flute with quarter tones that it's like Said Jabri said, it's so dumb because you try to make this, I don't know, a scale, this unique scale from your home country, that it's not quarter tone, it's a sixth tone between, or I don't know, third tone or fifth tone. There are very little tiny differences. Since 2015, which I really deeply started to study both modern classical music of Iran and medieval music of the Arab world. Because in the medieval, it's hard to say that this is Iranian music. It's Arab, it's Arab word. It's way more general.
It's more interconnected.
Yeah. What is interesting for me is both back then and now, all these melodies are based on three chords, tetrachords, and pentachords. So you have this three chord or four or a tetrachord, and you just choose to play 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the basic for one scale, and then you have 1, 3, 4, 2, 1. This is the basis for another scale, and then you play 1, 2, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, and this is basic for another scale. Even they are the same interval, same pitches. So this is really based on small units. And what I started to do is that I'm using these small units as tetrachords, three chords or pentachords, and I, instead of creating melodies based on them, I just flip them. Vertically, and just creating chord out of them. And by changing them, by adding or removing one of the voices within this chord, I can control how the beating happens, because all of them are, it's like C, D, E, sixth tone lowered, and then F. So there is a beating between D and this E, sixth tone lowered, and then another kind of beating between E and F. So when you have just play, you have your C as a fundamental, and then you play with the dynamic of these three other notes, E, D, E, and F, or just adding removing them. This is how I compose nowadays.
So, if I understand you correctly, the material you are working on is what is called in Arab music tradition jinn or ajnas. Like this parts that the tetrachords or trichords or pentachords that a scale or this, not scales, but this musical frameworks are built on. So this is your material, and you experiment with the ghost tones that are produced between these tones. Did I understand that correctly?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And what I'm doing is that I calculate all the possible ghost tones between these different pitches.
So this is where your background in math and physics
yes
say hello and come back, yeah.
Yes, because what is interesting is all these ajnas or genes, they are written in the form of ratios in back then. So and you have,
so they are written in like mathematically.
Yes. From they were calculating all the position for the fingers, so the fretboard of the instrument, with the length of the string. So I don't have any of them here unprinted. I have them to show you, but all of them, starting all these books written about the music theory back then, they're starting with the chapter about how to tune your instrument. And the main instrument that they were showing or talking about was oud. It's, you know what is oud? It's like guitar, short neck pluck instrument.
A plucked string instrument, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lute.
Exactly, like a lute. So they start to talking about if we have the length of the string as a ratio of 1 to 1. If we divide it into 2 equal parts, it's 2 to 1 each of these parts, and then going on, mathematically, like the Pythagorean, Pythagoras, yes, or Ptolemaic and all these ancient Greek writers. But what is interesting between the old Greek writings and old Islamic writings is they were not simply dividing the string and say that we have this and this and that. They were telling that for the position of the 4th finger, you have to find the 1/4 of the string and put the 1st fret there. And this is the maximum interval on the instrument, the 4th, because you have only four fingers in one string. And then the 2nd string, you just tune your 2nd string based on this place that you found for your 4th string. And then they explain all the different places between the fourth finger and the open string in the the neck, on the neck. And they write all this with in the form of ratios. So you have several of them are similar ratios with the Pythagorean tuning system, like 4:3 for the perfect 4th, 3:2 for the perfect 5th, or 9:8 for the perfect major 2nd, and so on. But there are some weird intervals there, like 13th position of the 13th harmonic for neutral 2nd, or 11th harmonic as a place for the neutral 3rd, which sits between your minor and major 3rd. So this is how they're writing. And then I translate all these ratios into the conventional Western notation system with the accidentals that Mark Sabat, the person who introduced just intonation to me, he didn't invented this accidentals, but he, based on the works of Helmholtz, the early 20th century, late 19th century acoustician and musician.
Sure.
He, based on the accidentals that Helmholtz invented, he expanded for notating harmonic series up to 46th harmonic. So you have to learn the conventional, normal, flat and sharp and neutral signs, accidentals, and then for each new prime or new harmonic, even odd harmonic, you have to learn a new extra sign. For example, for the seventh harmonic, you have this flipped, backwards seven, which was an invention of Tartini, not Mark Sabat, but he collects all these different systems and using in, inventing his Heji system. It's called HEJI, Heji notation system. So what I did for my researching as a PhD fellow and as a composer, what I'm doing is to translate all these ratios into Heji system to be able to notate them and communicate with them with the performers, musicians, and then compose with them. Also, because I'm really fascinated in the combination tones, different psychoacoustic effects, I'm calculating the exact frequency of each of these pitches. And with, it's a very easy mathematical equation that you have frequency 1 plus frequency 2, you have the summation tone as a ghost tone, and then difference of this frequency and frequency 1 and frequency 2 would be the sum tone, difference tone, which is usually the fundamental of these two pitches. So I started to working, from different things, just finally ended up to my new musical language. I've experienced with this very easy mathematical equation that I said for the combination tones, based on the equal temperament or different temperaments, and it gives you very harsh and not nice chords, because of they are the pitches in the equal temperament, they are not harmonically related, they are inharmonic, because they are not harmonic series. Simply say.
Yeah, they're not based on the harmonic series. It depends which intervals, but depends which intervals.
Yeah, but all of them are not based on the harmonic series. Some of
but the octave is.
Only the octave. Only the octave and the perfect fifth with 2 cents. The difference.
Yeah, it's a minimal difference, but it is a difference.
Yeah, it is a difference. So when you calculate this combination tones based on the equal temperament or different temperaments, then it's you don't like. I didn't like the sound, even though I experienced with them for a long time. Then I find out if I find the combination tones within the harmonic series, I really like them, even though they're very small intervals. They're considered dissonant intervals, but anyhow they are harmonically related because of the spectrum, because of the harmonic series, and I really enjoyed them. And then what I did, I had this in mind, that I want to make combination chords that they exist in the spectrum of one tone. What I did, I tried to map all the ajnas that I have found in old writings about music, map them in the harmonic series of the instruments. It's not here, it's in the other place. I can send you the picture later.
Yes,
for example, I decide that the central pitch is D, and I make the axis of the series of perfect fifths going down this direction, and from each of them going upwards the harmonic series. And then with that, you can map all the ajnas that you can find in the writings of Farabi, Ibn Sina, and many of other theoreticians from medieval time, because they were talking about divisions of the string. rational divisions of the string. It's exactly the same thing in the harmonic series. So I'm working with the ajnas that is translated into the harmonic series of one pitch, of spectrum of one pitch and its other spectrums, and compose with them. And then usually in the electronic, I usually add tape to almost all of my recent pieces, because I make all these combination chords as in the tape material to help the acoustic combination tones get out of the instruments. I don't know how much of this is my imagination or it's just theory, but I enjoy doing a lot of mathematics.
So, summing it up, your compositional approach is something in between, like some of the material, or the most of the material you work with comes from traditional Iranian classical music, from based in medieval theories, and you work with these based on mathematic formula and trying to sorry. And I found the word to extract from these ajnas, this traditional melodic material, acoustic effects like combination tones, ghost tones, and stuff like that. And this is the basis of your compositional work. Did I understand that correctly?
Very much correct.
Very much correct. And you call this holographic compositional technique.
Yes.
Can you maybe, in short, say something about that? What do you mean by holographic? This seems not a very musical term.
Exactly. Well, in the area of photography, the term hologram is defined as a three-dimensional image produced from a pattern of interference produced by a split of coherent beam of radiation, which is really hard even to read from the text for me.
Even more to understand. Yeah.
But I understand it, yes.
But I don't. Explain it.
Okay. So when you, it says that when you have like two beams of radiation, the interference between them creates a hologram. It is exactly, I try to translate this, very not understandable term for us musicians into the music terms. What is the closest thing to a hologram with this definition is the combination tones, because combination tones are the product of interference of two frequencies, and we have one sum tones and one difference tones. So out of one interval, one dyad, you have a 4-voice chord. It was my starting point for this holographic composition technique, because I really fascinated with the idea of combination tones. That, oh wow, you have two frequencies. And the first time, it's really funny, the first time I met this phenomena was many years in 2009. I wrote a piece for 3 flutes, and I had for a moment in this piece I had a very a secondal cluster chord in very high register of the flute, like C quarter sharp and then C sharp. They had to hold it for a moment, for a while, for several seconds. And then in the concert hall, I heard other voices than only these 3. And for some years, I was trying to understand what happened. And, in Armenia, Teachers were very old-fashioned. They didn't really care about the psychoacoustic stuff. And then, many years later, I met Mark Sabat, and he just started to explain.
He explained what happened.
Yeah, he explained that what happened.
But your interest was born out of an actual concert experience. It was not that you read about it, but you experienced this phenomenon. You liked it, that you tried to reproduce it maybe in a way, or you tried.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is what your doctoral thesis is more or less about.
Yes.
Which you completed, as I understand correctly, recently, and defended. Is that right?
Not defended yet. I just finished. I just delivered the thesis and all the artistic products. I'm waiting for the jury to make the decision, and then having the viva voce, the general defense and so on. Yeah. I am in the limbo now.
So I wish you very much luck with that. But what then? So you are now you accomplished something. Is it? Do you consider it a closed subject for you, or is it rather this doctoral thesis phase of your compositional life? Is it rather like the starting point of your general? Well, you can't say what a kind of composer will be in 10 years, but do you consider it more a starting point, or do you consider it like an accomplishment and a closed chapter, or a closing chapter?
For me, all these 4 years of doctoral studies was like the continuation of what I started back then in that basement that I told you with the cassette players.
Yeah.
Because now I do a lot of those, I remembered and I use all of those weird things that we were doing. Now I know what we were doing because I learned them, and I read the books about them that it's written, or learned the techniques. But it's basically the same ideas, the same experiences, the same feelings that I had many years ago. For me, this 4 years of doctoral studies was 4 years of having extreme focus on certain things in my life, because I didn't have to teach, I didn't have to do anything else except just sit and focus on myself, my project, my research, and compose and write about it. So I don't consider that it started in 2019 when I came to Norway. It started probably in 1999 when I wanted to become the first Iranian black metal singer. Somehow this weird journey brought me to this Farabi microtones and all these things.
It brought you back in time and back to your origins.
yeah, exactly.
Your cultural origins.
Yeah, cultural origins, like going back to the 9th century Iran. I had to learn a lot about the different types of history of my own country. The religious history, all the wars, all the conflicts, everything, and it was very interesting for me. But I also don't consider that it was a chapter of my life that it's finished and now I'm doing whatever I want to do. I kind of can consider these 4 years as a pivot change direction of my new of the language of my music, because now I think my music became more radical than before.
What do you mean by radical?
In the meaning of cutting things, like cutting the melody, cutting the form. Now recently I just started this series of pieces since summertime, the Chords of Our Time. It's the name of this series. I composed 3 of them already. And this is just about one chord that starts and finishes. Like it can be like 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours. It's an open form text score based on the same things that I'm doing, tuning systems, ajnas, all these things, but it's in the shape of text score. And it can be for any device, for singers, for orchestra, it can be performed. So these 4 years, this thinking very deeply about the statics, about everything, just gave me, put me in the direction that I am now. I might be in another direction if I didn't have the chance to do the doctorate studies, because then you don't have the time for, think only about writing music for 4 years. You have to teach, you have to go, you have to travel, you have to earn money in other ways. So it was very nice 4 years.
You were saying that during your doctorate you had the freedom to explore, to experiment, to research, and focus only on that. Do you consider this material maybe, or this past that you collected, do you consider it maybe like that? Do you consider it a starting point that you now will create works based on the things you discovered for yourself? You learned for yourself?
I think so. Yes, I think so, because I've been always searching for the raw material for my music. For a very long time, I was using either folk music, tuning systems, or melodies, or from the Dastgah music, using the tetrachords or melodic patterns or different things, different material. But now that I have, I had the chance to study and learn all these writings of the medieval time, it's a gold mine for me because it's an unlimited raw material for writing new music.
Yeah, I have this quote from an Iranian composer, Hormuz Farad, who quote the quote is, "Thus the Radif submits an infinite source of musical expression." So it's what you said. It's an infinite source of material that you can build it upon, and that you are connected with through your cultural roots.
Yes, exactly.
Finishing, my last question for you would be, based on the title of your most recent work, Chords of Our Time. You said you started this series in summer, and well, this has a kind of political ring to it, and maybe this is what we were talking shortly before, what is going on in Iran like now. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that, and maybe also my question is how does it affect you as a obviously it affects you as a person, as we have family in Iran and friends, but as an artist, does it have, are these chords of our time, are these reflections your own emotional reactions, maybe also to the ongoing revolution in Iran? Please.
Thank you for a question. Thank you for bringing this. And yes, these.
Sorry, but I'm convinced that this is very important to speak about, because it's not in the middle, and I think it's something that you always say, that it's not in the middle of the world politics interests. It's the war of Russia against Ukraine. That's in the middle of our perspective, and this is somewhere in the background. But obviously for you it isn't. And if you could tell us a bit about that, for us who don't know that much, to have a background.
You just wanted me to start with what happened in the summertime, or just a little bit longer story?
No, not. We don't need to speak about the Shah and stuff, but only maybe. Well, we know about the political situation in Iran, that the theocracy, the brutality of the police, the torture, the murders, the hangings. It's awful. And it affects you obviously as a person very deeply. And my question is basically if this series of Chords of Our Time is if it's connected to that, if it's a reaction of you to the awful events in Iran. Maybe also hopeful events. Hopefully,
yeah, definitely. It's really this series is just started because of the recent revolution in Iran since September 16. The fact is that when the revolution started, I was in the last phase of my doctoral studies. I had to finish my thesis. I have to deliver it on time. And in academia, there is no mercy. You have to deliver. There is no chance to postpone or anything. So I had to finish my final concert. It was a 70-minute piece for audio-visual tape, orchestra, Iranian instruments involved. Based on the 11th century Sufi allegory of finding the eternal, knowledge inside yourself, and so on. And
philosophical.
Very philosophical stuff happening. And then, boom, revolution happened. One night, one morning, you just wake up and, the country is just upside down. I had to finish those things that I have started. So I finished that huge piece. I finished my writing of the thesis and delivering. And meanwhile, I was thinking about the position of a, let's say, academic composer like myself, that we consider, we work at the academia. We're writing a lot of, academic things. We are writing new music, talking about it in the seminars and so on. But then I was thinking that what is the role of my music in the
role?
Revolution?
You mean the role? The role, yeah.
Role of my music in the revolution, because the impact of that, impact of social and political matters on me and in my music is always available since my early works. Because it was there always. But the other way, I wasn't sure what to do. And what I realized is that our music is too elitistic. So in order for my music to be, reach to audience, to talk about it, to read about it, to hear that, I need to have an orchestra. I need to have a concert hall. I need to have, preparation. And in the West, it takes long time. I have to, rent the concert hall 2 years in advance, talk with the orchestra 1.5 years in advance, and, deliver the score and so on. And 2 years later, who knows what happened with the revolution. So I started to thinking how I can make immediate music that I just produce it and it just go out and people could listen to it. One of the things is to make the electroacoustic music or electronic music, or just play it at home, record it and publish it in the social medias, or wherever in the net. And then I thought that, because in between there were also a lot of ensembles that asking me to please deliver, we need some new music. And especially in Iran, inside Iran, a lot of ensembles or performers, they ask me they want music. And then I started through this thinking and, the very hard work of writing a PhD thesis, I reached this idea that, well, writing for a concerto for, I don't know, huge amount of orchestra with you know, different setup is a dream thing for every composer. But I also want to have, you know, this immediate music that it can be performed very easily. It can be performed in the middle of nowhere. It can be performed by anyone. So I started this course of our time, which there are little instructions there. Just, for example, one of them is that I finished for one of the one ensemble in Tehran, that they want to perform it in the public places. So they had to just come, sit, play, go away before the police come. So, you know, the instructions is that sing one tone, the other one sing a perfect tone, and then you make the slow glissando reach to that. When it reached to that one, the first person had to stop and sing another fifth. And, you know, with the, you know, you're making this chain of fifths going on forever, up and down from one thing. Or the recent one that I finished for oscillators, that I make the, you know, studio version of that, but it can be with any instrument. It's the based on the harmonic series of 20, 21, and 22 of any fundamental tone with different registers. And because when we lower down some of the harmonic series, you can just reach to the lower harmonics, like 20th harmonic is exactly the same pitch as the 5th harmonic, but four octaves higher. So when you think about this, you know, these three numbers are very important for me politically, because today, tomorrow, and the day after that, based on the Iranian calendar, are the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of the month, of the 11th month of, you know, solar calendar that we count the years in Iran. And these 3 days are the days that there is supposed to be happen a lot of things around the globe against the regime. There are rallies everywhere in the States, in Europe. There are talks in the parliaments in Europe against Islamic regime, and inside Iran, the people are on a strike on this specific 3 days, because these are the days that the revolution, Islamic revolution, won in 1979. So, you know, playing around the numbers, I just reached to this chord, which is a very dissonant chord, actually. When you just play it for a very long time, this is a not easy chord to listen to. So I don't know. This is my musical reaction to the events.
So you did feel this. You said it before, that it turned your world upside down in a way. That you're in this academic cloud of, you have different ideas, and something happens, and you consider it like it turns your world upside down, and it changed your perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And it changed your music. I think as hard as the times are, I think this is always something very, very worth to observe, and to see what this develops into. Like you felt the need for your music to have an impact, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So true.
So let's finish it here. Women, Life, Freedom.
Yeah, Women, Life, Freedom. Thank you so much.
Women, Life, Freedom. Say it in Farsi, please, for us.
Zan Zendagi Azadi.
Thank you very much, and all the best for you and your people.